Hey everyone, welcome to today's webinar. This is how to save thousands of clicks using Optim for Unreal Engine. There will be plenty of time for Q&A at the end. We're really community focused, so certainly if you came in with any questions or you have any questions in the middle of it, please let us know and we can answer them right here on the spot. And also, just a heads up, we are definitely going to be doing a lot more of these webinars. So other than the broad overview, which is quite a bit of today's presentation, certainly we can focus in on any specific features or workflow issues that you have. But for today's presentation, first, I'm going to give the overview of what is Optim and go over brief intros of each different piece of it. And then we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive into the three main pieces of it. So some live demos of the importer and toolkit, and a live demo of what to do to set up our collaborative multi-user template. And then we will have Q&A, and we'll keep it pretty light. So first, what is Optim? Optim is a suite of tools to accelerate the real-time rendering pipeline. So our company and many, many others are looking into Unreal Engine as a way to create renders faster or create interactive content, virtual reality experiences. But in getting up and running with that workflow, there are quite a few hitches and quite a bit of labor that goes into it. So we're trying to tackle it from every end. We handle the automation of your data prep. We handle the speeding up of your day-to-day activities when you're in the editor. And then we help you deliver really compelling experiences on the back end once you've got your content all up and ready. So first, the importer is the Optim sub-product that we initially launched with late last year. And the importer is an application that sits on top of your Unreal Engine and intercepts your DataSmith files or your other CAD files that you're about to be bringing in. The beauty of the DataSmith format that Unreal Engine created is that what you see is what you get. Things get properly translated, your meshes are there, your materials come over. However, that can be the problem for a real-time workflow. So if you have too many assets or too many polygons bogging down your scene, or too many materials that need to be replaced with Unreal Engine materials, we can handle that here in the importer, and I'll go over some of that later. And then regardless of how you bring in your content, whether it's through our importer, another one, just maybe you've got a scene already up and running, we provide an in-editor toolkit to really simplify that experience of your day-to-day activities. You still need to be doing things like levels of detail or merging meshes together to reduce the draw call count, or even just managing light maps and other really typical settings. However, those really easy settings are buried within a lot of different menus and panels and extra windows that you need to pop out. So the toolkit brings it all to the surface. And finally, what's really awesome about our latest release with Optim just a little over a month ago is our new multi-user collaborative templates. So this allows you, with the Optim plugin installed to your project, to set one very simple setting and immediately package a multiplayer game, send it to all your stakeholders, join sessions via desktop or VR with voice communication and a growing selection of design review tools that can help you out. And I'll be showing that as well. So let's get into the live demo, and we're going to be tackling those three different areas of Optim and the Optim workflow. So I've got an example scene here. This is a fairly complex architectural interior scene. It's a casino that we made just for the purposes of demoing. But even though it had thousands of objects, and even though it had many, many millions of polygons, it still runs at more than 100 frames per second here on my computer because we applied quite a few optimizations. And then even for the visuals, we actually replaced all of these materials on import without manually dragging them around. So this scene is exactly what was imported through the importer, plus a simple light build that we started on top of it. And you'll notice things like clicking on the tables. All of these tables are actually just one object. We've aggressively instantiated them. And if I click on the floor, even though there are technically hundreds and hundreds of floor pieces, these have also been merged down. And again, the textures in here did not come around in the original CAD formats. we replace them on import. So I'll go over some of those techniques and procedures to how you might be able to do that with your own files with the import. So the Optim plugin, once it's installed, brings up this nice orange button here in your toolbar, and that will launch our toolkit, which is also a launcher. So this is all things Optim. We have links for documentation and feature requests, support, and your licensing info. And it also serves as the launcher for the importer. So clicking that button will bring up our importer on my other monitor. And it has a list of recent files that I've opened, but I will go and open a new file. And this is for Datasmith files and any of those other CAD formats you are already used to using with Unreal Engine and the Datasmith type workflow. But we basically intercept it and add our own layer of good stuff on top. So selecting a Datasmith file and clicking open runs our pre-processing. We analyze this file so that you can know what is in it, the general complexity of it, how many materials are in it, and we also analyze your current project to find all of your materials that you have in there in order to set up that material replacement workflow. So this will take just a few more seconds, and you'll see the geometry count tallying up as we have those thousands of objects being recognized, and the materials and lighting and so on will also fill. And for such a heavy scene, this process can be pretty quick. The first screen, that pops up is our file overview. So this is some simple graphs and charts to give you a broad idea of the complexity of your scene. So we can see that there are some objects, a few hundred, that are here on the far end of our polygon count, hundreds of thousands of polygons. So maybe that's an easy way to optimize our scene. We also have our own unique duplicate detection system. So it turns out that 94% of the objects in this scene are just duplicates of one another. Perhaps that's an easy way to optimize it as well. And if you have any textures, or materials, or lights, we can also give you a preview of what's really going on in there. At the very bottom of the screen on the far left is an element list. And clicking this gives you a glance into your scene. So every single asset in here is portrayed. We can see there's a lot of floor objects, many of them, which I probably need to reduce. And these sections can also be categorized, sorted by things like triangle count. So these slot machines are actually in the hundreds of thousands of triangles, and there are a lot of those. So perhaps I need to fix that. So after looking at that or not looking at that, right below the file overview screen is our geometry tab. And this is where really all the power of Optim comes into play. This is where you set up what we call rules for how to import and process your models. So at the top right, there's a button for creating a new rule. And there are two categories of rules. There are smart rules, which we consider to be the easy button. Using a smart rule, we'll take your whole entire project and apply one or so very common settings in order to combine all the objects into groups, or in order to instance all the duplicate objects. And you could just run with that and see what happens. Or you can go with a new rule, which is very specific for your workflow. And I'll give two quick examples of each one. So if I select smart rules, I have one simple dropdown for the first piece of it, for the smart filter. And I get the option of duplicates, or layer, and clusters. So duplicates, if I choose that, it's going to apply this rule to any of those duplicated objects. So for any duplicated object, we can instance it out or merge it. And if you have Optim open and you don't see the instance option here, you would have to enable that as one of our experimental features in the settings here. But regardless, it's very powerful. It's experimental because sometimes the pivot points are wrong. Meshes can like flip around. So you can go ahead and try it out, see what happens. Or you can always merge all your duplicate objects. So if you had a stadium filled with thousands of chairs, you could chunk them together instantaneously without going back to your original software. But besides duplicates, what I love the most is clusters. So if you need to get a very heavy duty model straight onto a mobile headset or even VR in general, and you need to lower that object count, using our clustering algorithm and choosing the number of objects you're going to end up with will dramatically improve your performance. So what we do is analyze the locations of each mesh and start merging them together, which is somewhat destructive. You don't retain all the control of every single individual component of that, but is incredibly powerful for getting things at a higher frame rate. So I can just leave that at like 38 clusters for this whole scene. The iterations is just for our algorithm to refine itself. And then the main settings that you might want to keep an eye on are our smart decimation, smart level of detail, and smart light map resolution. And anytime you see something called smart, that means it's using our recommendations. So we can automatically reduce your poly count based on the size and complexity of your object. We can automatically choose to do LODs or not, depending on the size and complexity, and so on and so forth. You're of course free to turn those off if you want to retain all the detail that you already had there. Generating those smart rules will then go through and create those clusters. And I can actually hit the OK button to confirm that. And now have all these geometry rules saved out here in Optim. And you can see at the top that by just setting that simple rule, I have retained all the quality and all the materials and everything about my scene, but I've reduced the number of objects from 2,500 to 38, which is pretty good. And for the purposes of this demo, I'll just go ahead and clear those by double-clicking that delete icon. And I'll give one more example of the specific rules before we move on. So if I do a new rule, this is where you can start to define and create all the different rules and recipes that you or your company really need to make the most out of Unreal Engine. So what you would do is add a module into our modules list, and they are either going to be filters or actions. So filters would be selecting assets based on a number of parameters. You could select things based on naming convention. You could select things based on what layer they're on, select things based on what material they have. So you could select any concrete assets in your scene and merge those into one piece or delete them entirely, things like that. For this, I can just go filter by name, and I can add another filter inside of that to actually specify it. So anything that contains the word floor, I can apply and get a list of these thousands and thousands of flooring pieces that really probably don't need to be separate pieces. And from here, I can actually refine it further because it turns out that there's a like this Optim logo floor piece. I don't want to merge that because it's really special. So I can actually create a new filter and switch it to exclude something that includes the word logo. And that Optim piece disappeared from the top. So you can add and refine these different parameters to really get your very specific thing done. And now that I have these flooring pieces selected, I would add a module for the action that I want to apply. So the most powerful ones would be the merging. Again, you could turn thousands of flooring pieces into just 1 or 2 or 100. You could also delete them with the ignore feature, or create levels of detail, or even reduce their poly count right here before you ever even open up that file in Unreal. It's just done for you, and you don't have to check back in on it later. So that's the gist of specific and smart rules, which you would then craft and customize. And these buttons right here are for loading and saving your rules, because you can actually create a very tiny text file and send it to your teammates, or use it again for the next import or the next project if you do have naming conventions, or if you do end up creating LODs for complex meshes all the time. And then the other section of Optim is our material rules, which a lot of people find very handy. For example, if I add another rule here, you can see that what pops up is a gallery of the materials included in this original file. This original file has flat colors. So all of these carpets are just colors, which is not very visually appealing. If I was to turn this into a really high-end interactive experience, I would probably want it different. And normally, that would mean that you drag and drop and drag and drop all of these materials. But I can select one or multiple of these orange carpets and then go to the reassignment tab. And these are the thumbnails and the materials of the actual Unreal Engine project in the background. So what you would do is preload an empty project or any project with your material library or a marketplace material library or anything you want. And we would automatically detect files that are in there. And you'll see that if I search for carpets, I actually have these carpets that were made ahead of time by my artist. These are high-res 4K carpets with normal maps, and perhaps they have a parallax occlusion mapping effect on them. And by setting up that replacement, I could even save it out again. But any instance of that flat-colored carpet is going to be replaced with my really high-quality Unreal Engine material, which is really, really handy. We also offer a lighting section that can give you some quick settings for like adjusting the intensity of your lights. And the final section is just the overview of what you're about to import to confirm those settings. You can even use this level tab up here to choose if you wanted to import these files into the current level or into a new level if you're doing a new file. So that's it on the importer. Feel free to ask any questions in the chat, and we'll circle back around to this later. Now, regardless of how you got your assets into Unreal, whether it's through our importer or any other method that you're already using, the in-editor toolkit is a really, really handy feature that we've really revamped for the latest release. So in that same launcher that we launched the importer from, this is actually its own toolkit with many of those similar features that I already showed you. The left-hand side here is a variety of menus for ways to use optimizations or utilities right inside the viewport. First, I'm going to open up a different scene that is not already pre-optimized. That'll help me demonstrate it better. You can see that this is the one with the flat colors and the really ugly stuff going on. But I'll switch to a different view mode to make it easier to see and show off our selection sets. The first menu item here is selection. And similar to our filters in the importer, this allows you to intuitively select objects within your scene without the pain of manually doing it. For example, I have a couple hundred chairs here. I don't really want them to remain as a couple hundred chairs. Perhaps I want to do the clustered merging on them. Typically, I would have to control select every single chair, or select the chairs and then over in the animator, find the first one and find the last one and shift select. It's a bit clunky, and then of course I'd have to do that for any other types of assets in the scene I want to get. But with the selection set in Optim, I can actually type in the word chair and it will automatically select them all. And I could even refine that further because it looks like it selected these slot machine chairs. So maybe I don't want those ones. I think those are called poker chairs. So I can choose to just remove them like this. Oh, it selected the other ones, these ones. But you can see what I mean. And beyond just the naming convention, we can do materials. So you can select everything with that concrete material, or I can select everything with the carpeting material and select just the flooring, just like that. So no scrolling, or hunting, or clicking and selecting 1,000 different pieces. And of course, there's location, size of the object, the vertex count, a lot of other ways that you can start to build up that sort of rule. Just the selection alone is what's going to save you thousands of clicks, as the webinar title goes. But let me quickly reselect those chairs. I believe these are bar chairs in the level. Sorry about that. And now I want to do my clustered merging. So the second menu item is our optimizations. And the first item here is my favorite, clustered merge, because this is unique to Optim. Typically, if I wanted to chunk out this scene into several simplified objects, I would have to go back into my 3D editing software. But right here, I can do it in the viewport. There are two options for radius or quadrants. This is basically just a slight variation in our algorithm that you can play around with, see which one works best for you. My favorite is quadrants because it's much more localized clusters. And then here we select the max number of meshes per cluster, which you can set to 16 or type in a value of your own. And I can just click the preview here without even executing the whole action. And you'll see that the colors of the chairs have changed, including the tables. And these colors represent which meshes are going to come together. So those green chairs will become one object, the pink chairs will become one object, and the white chairs will become one object. And if I were to click apply, it would actually run that, replace the chairs automatically. They would still have their materials intact, they would still have their light maps intact, and you could continue to work with them and change other settings. So let me undo that preview and move on to some of the other ones. Level of detail is one that we certainly love because creating levels of detail in Unreal can be a little bit clunky. So this slot machine, the one with hundreds of thousands of polygons in it, if I wanted to change the LODs on that, I would have to open up the setting mesh, scroll down to the appropriate LOD section, which there are like 3 of, and then pick the correct LOD group. I get lost every time, and hit apply, and then go and open up the next type of asset I want, like the chair. But with Optim, you can click on that asset and any other asset, and right within your viewport, you don't have to think about the settings or think about opening up 20 different static mesh editors. You can just use the level of detail and click generate. You can trust our smart preset if you want to, or customize it with Unreal Engine presets, or customize it with very specific settings. I would just leave it on smart. And this generation of level of detail was nearly instantaneous. And you can see the colors changing means that these objects are getting less complex the farther they are from the camera. And it's that easy to set that up in Optim. Our whole entire mission is to simplify this whole process so that you and your employees do not need to feel like you have to be game developers in order to make something happen with Unreal Engine. And one other feature I want to show off is light map resolutions. If I switch this view mode, these colors are the density of the light maps, which basically means the quality of your final light build if you're using static lighting. And they're currently all orange. Perhaps that's perfect, or perhaps I want it to be higher quality. So what I would do is continue to select any types of assets that I want and go to light map resolution. And from here, I can pick low, medium, or high quality right out of the gate. And I will check off the override option, so it'll push it to all the parent assets. And instantaneously, let me do this one. Instantaneously, I get all these different light map resolutions set up. So I can do the floors, and let me reselect all these assets, and I can go back to green with the low setting. And I could easily specify a custom resolution as well. So the way you would typically have to do that is to select one object, scroll in the details panel, go to the overridden light map resolution and type in another value, or open up that static mesh editor, keep on scrolling down to these general settings that you have to expand, and then light map resolution is right here as well. And the beauty of using Optim's density, like low, medium, high, is that we've applied different settings to all these different types of assets. So you don't have to apply 512 to some and 1024 to others manually. You can just let us pick it out, and it'll be what you think. One last feature here in the toolkit that tends to impress people is our decimation. So decimation is reducing the poly count of a mesh. And perhaps you've gone through the importer, you've set up all these rules, and just at the very end, you realize that you have something that's really high poly and needs to get reduced, but you don't want to set something up again. Well, right in the viewport, you can select any object and use our decimate feature to use like a fixed value of reducing this chair by 99%. And instantaneously, all the polygons are basically crushed to death. It no longer looks like a chair, so perhaps you'd want to reel that back. And non-destructively, you could undo it, refine it, go to 50%, whatever you want to do, and apply that to as many assets as you want. It's a wonderful combination of selecting by vertex count with our selection tools, and then applying decimation. And that way you can just take the top chunk of your most complex assets and immediately crush them down. So you can get from raw files to optimized files really, really quickly by using the Optim in-editor toolkit. Okay, so the last section is just some quick utilities. For example, we can schedule a light build for any time of day so that you don't have to click build immediately and basically stop your productivity for the day as your computer thinks. Or if you're on networked builds, you don't have to stop the productivity of your colleagues for the rest of the day. You can schedule it to happen in the evening. We also have some other things like flattening the hierarchy, which just moves everything out from under their parents. And then if you have a lot of nested locators in your scene that kind of clutter it up or reduce your editor performance, you can use our clean empty actors to just instantly remove those. So that's the majority of that in-editor toolkit. There's certainly a lot to play around with there, and the different settings and combinations of settings will vary depending on what assets you're using. The last section, the last product type of Optim is our template system. So the toolkit that I just shown off is part of our starter tier, which is only $12 a month, $108 a year. And the template for our multi-user collaborative features is in the Pro tier, which is $90 a month or $900 a year. But the last webinar was titled How to Set Up a Multi-User VR Session in Just 10 Minutes or Less, because it is terribly simple. What you do is go to the template setup and simply download and install. What this does is it fetches the latest and greatest content that we've produced from our servers and injects it straight into the project. And depending on your internet speed, that could take 10 seconds or it could take 5 minutes. You know, that always varies, but it's very, very fast. And then we prompt a restart. And when you restart, what it does is changes your config settings to have all of the voice configuration set up, all of the replication set up, all of the motion controller support set up, and you've got your game mode ready to go. And really all you have to do is package the app. The other two things you'd have to do, let me first switch over to the other example project. This one already has that installed. The other two things you have to do is make sure your plugins are set up correctly. So if you go to Edit and Plugins, we do require the Optim template plugin to be enabled. And we do require the Niagara plugin to be enabled, but you have to use the built-in section. So this one right here. And those are going to be automatically enabled in just the next release of Optim, which could be available in a couple weeks' time. And then there's one other setting to change. If you have your content folder open, you can search for game. And the BP Theia game instance contains one simple setting for the default map that you want to launch. So no matter what you pick, the multi-user template app that you create, it's going to launch a professional menu where you get to type in a display name, pick to host a server or join a server, things like that. But then the map you jump into to actually review your content, you have to specify in this one little spot. So our level here is called bar deck. So you just type in bar deck into the starting map and you're good to go. File, package project, and when that's done, which does, the time there varies depending on the content and the complexity of your files. Once that's done, you've got an executable ready to go. And I have an executable ready to go, which I will show you now. This is the folder for this project with the bar scene. And the default place would be this Windows No Editor folder, where I have a standalone executable ready to go. So I could zip this up, send it to a customer, send it to a client via whatever file sharing system you have. And once you launch it, we've got our professional application here where I can just type in my display name, pick an accent color, which would affect my avatar and affect things like a laser pointer so people see what you're selecting. And you get to choose either a solo session or a local network session or an internet-based session. The internet-based session is the most powerful because you can connect from anywhere on the globe without typing in IP addresses, without configuring your router or gateway. It's really easy to get up and running and secure. The one caveat is that Steam is required right now. So you and your connecting partner will need to have the Steam store downloaded and running in the background in order for this to work properly. So as long as that's okay, you're good to go, and it's really, really easy to connect. So for example, I could right now start an internet session, choose to host it. If I join one, my partner will actually show up here in this menu, but no one's helping me out right now, so I'll host my own. You then pick your platform, VR, desktop, and connect. And you jump right into your application, and if your colleagues are right here, you can see each other, talk to one another, and pull out a variety of tools. And I will quickly show you the video we have with the collaborative template content. So this is that bar scene. This is just a few of us on a random workday testing it out. Got Dylan and Zach with me. We can see each other, talk to each other. This is a virtual camera where I can actually zoom in and render out 4K images right within my VR experience. And this is a whiteboard tool where I can sketch, or other people can draw on each other's whiteboards, and we can ideate in that way. And we also have a laser pointer tool where you can select meshes and they highlight for other users. And more tools are on the way. So we have like a 3D annotation tool and a measurement tool that are in development for the next version. But that is as simple as it is to set up that collaborative experience. You don't need to be a programmer. You don't need to model these avatars. If you are an advanced user, you can replace those assets. We actually give you full access to all of these files, which have totally minimized themselves. But like I searched in that content folder, there's an Optim folder right here. So this folder, if you dig through template and dig through blueprints and dig through the pawns, these avatars and all the code associated with them are yours to edit and modify, build your own tools, your own interfaces, replace the avatars as you wish. And another piece of cool content that we provide is under the Maps folder, under Conference Room. We plan on offering a lot of extra templates for you guys that are industry-based or functionality-based to get you up and running with really common use cases for these design review sessions. The first one we're starting out with is this Design Studio, which is a big concrete room, which allows you to import any of your files like a motorcycle or a shampoo bottle or a fighter jet, anything like that. And you don't have to have your artists work on a different scene, or you don't have to go to TurboSquid and try to find, an environment for you guys to hang out with. You can jump right here into this content and edit it as you want. We also include a conference room if you want to pretend like you're sitting in chairs. And these whiteboards are fully drawable, so you guys can get together and make some really big charts and task lists and whatever else. So that's the gist of the Optim multi-user templates. Very easy to set up, lots of cool content that comes with it. Definitely keep an eye out on your emails for new content updates that we hope to have coming out pretty soon. But that wraps up the general Optim overview. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you guys have. I'll keep an eye here on the Q&A, and I'll also ask some frequently answered questions that get brought up quite a bit. So one question we get a lot is Oculus Quest support. Certainly the toolkit is amazing for getting your models ready for the Oculus Quest, which has a huge performance requirement. But unfortunately, the collaborative template does not currently support Quest. It is on our roadmap, and you could technically get it to work where you could leverage a lot of our content if you already know what you're doing, but it's not really set up out of the box to work right into that side-loaded Oculus Quest headset right now. We officially support the desktop platforms and the desktop headsets like the HP Reverb or other Windows mixed reality headsets, and the Oculus Rift and HTC Vive and similar headsets like that. And of course, there is desktop. Mobile support is not there yet. We do have people who are requesting mobile support for perhaps an augmented reality application, or they have an iPad Pro that they want users to be able to join from, and it's not quite ready to go, but certainly is available and would work out. If you do have your own types of code already assembled, your own pawns or your own multi-projector display system setup, it should work with this content. And if you leverage our pawn system, you would be able to get these multi-user viewpoints from any of those other code classes that you're creating. And then one final comment about licensing. What's really awesome and affordable about Optim is with those multi-user collaborative sessions, you are only paying for the seats of Unreal Engine developers who are creating and packaging up that content. None of your stakeholders count for anything. We don't require any of those shared people to have Optim accounts or do anything with us. It all just comes along for the ride, which makes it really accessible and really easy for you guys to share that with whoever you want in whatever way. Okay, I think we are running out of questions, so I'm going to wrap up here, but certainly go to our website, theia.io/Optim. All of what I just showed is available in our 14-day free trial that you can go and get right now. And if you've already had an Optim trial in the past and you want to check out the latest and greatest 1.2 features we just released, definitely reach out to whoever you were in contact with earlier or the general contact form, and we would be happy to extend your trial, make sure you get a fair shot. We're also really involved with customers, so we'd be happy to schedule a one-on-one demo. You can do that right from the main website or email. There was one extra question asked right here. Multi-user conferencing independent of Unreal Engine. So currently we do require Unreal Engine, and we build all of our tools really inside of that ecosystem. There is a follow-up there for working past the company's firewall. Because we leverage Steam, which has very long history of working on these sorts of matchmaking services and connecting users across the world, it is very, very successful at bypassing company firewalls. So you shouldn't need to whitelist too much. However, some companies do just not allow third-party software or game-type software to be installed. So you'd have to contact your IT admin. We'd be happy to answer any follow-up questions for your unique situation. Okay, well, I think that wraps up the questions, and I think that wraps up my talk for you guys today. Between the importer and the toolkit and the collaborative template where you don't need to code any of that VR experience, you should definitely be able to save thousands of clicks with Optim. So we would love to schedule a demo or give you a shot at that free trial. So go ahead and do it, and thanks, and I'll see you next time.